Okay, I think we're live. Welcome everyone to the Artcasters. This is episode 3, and I am Scott Serkland with Serkworks Illustration and Design, and I have with me Jeff Lafferty.
Yeah.
And Kevin Cross.
Hello.
So, Kevin, you want to go ahead and introduce yourself and what you do and everything?
Yeah, I'm Kevin Cross. I'm an illustrator, cartoonist, whatever you want to call it. And that's what I do for a living. I make comic books predominantly these days.
Hold on. My bad. Okay. Sorry.
What happened?
Oh, I had the YouTube volume up.
Oh, whoops.
Yeah. I had this checklist, and I was trying to go up, check everything off, make sure I was doing this right. So I don't host a lot of these. So yeah, the idea with this is that we're gonna each of us take turns hosting. So this is kind of my first time in a while, so I'm a little rusty. Jeff, what about you? Who are you? Are you there?
Jeff's also an artist. I'll speak for him.
Is he frozen? It looks like he might be frozen.
Oh no.
He jumped off. So, well, did he jump off? He may have jumped off. I'm looking at the YouTube, and then I'm looking at the Google Hangout, and I don't see him on the Google Hangout, so he's probably...
Yeah, it looks like he's...
Okay, so he should be jumping back in. So we can wait for him, or I can just have you kind of kick off I can tell you what say what the topic is, and probably have you kick that off. So today we're going to be talking about style and influences, and how your influences inform your style. And there's a lot of, especially newer illustrators, I think they're very concerned with style and how do I come up with the style and everything. So I guess we kind of want to address that, but we also want to say, should we really be thinking of style at that point, or is it something that kind of comes naturally? And I guess it's good to start off with you, Kevin, because in kind of recent years, you did make a focused effort to kind of change or come up with a new style, like your cartoon modern style and everything. And it seemed like a real focused effort, and I think it paid dividends. So I don't even want to talk about that, or I mean, you can go back before that and how you came to that, or if you want to talk about your influences. But I am curious because it did look like you did make this conscious effort to create a particular style, and it worked. So.
Yeah, I'm rich now.
Yeah. Well.
So no. So yeah. I mean, I guess we can address that real quick. It's hard to talk about without talking about influences, but I'll just so I don't talk the entire hour myself. So I'm influenced by artists, cartoonists, illustrators, all across the board, from like Frank Frazzetta to Sergio Aragonés. A lot of that, I think, I was thinking about it earlier before we started recording, actually, and I think that comes from my love of like Mad Magazine and stuff. You had like Al Jaffe, and then you had someone like Mort Drucker, who they're both cartoony but very different. Mort Drucker is like a caricaturist, but still fairly kind of in his line work a lot more realistic, say, than Al Jaffe or Sergio Aragonés, who's very quick and that kind of stuff. And then I was a nerdy kid, so I loved sci-fi novels and fantasy novels. And back in the '80s, they just had actually, I'm going to say like from the 60s through the '80s, they had like fantastic covers, very realistic, fantastical stuff. So anyway, my influences are across the board. And I went to art school, found myself going a little bit more towards like a more Drucker type, realistic type cartooning, I guess. I don't know, I was really fighting with that kind of style, because it never came real easy. I mean, good art never does, but it never came really easy for me. And I was kind of forcing this almost realistic kind of look. And then just this light bulb, and I think this ties into like young illustrators, they want their style now. They want their voices for like today, and it kind of came into play, I don't know, 6 years ago now at this point, actually, where I was like, well, if I'm gonna force anything, I'm gonna at least try something different. So I also do love 1950s type illustration that falls almost more along the lines of like abstract art in a way, which then became kind of known because of a book actually by Midi, became kind of collectively known as the cartoon modern kind of style. And we're talking Jim Flora, Bill Ward, which is like Rocky and Bullwinkle kind of stuff. In modern day, you might see that kind of stuff with like Gendy Tartakovsky cartoons, McCracken cartoons, like Powerpuff Girls and Samurai Jack, that kind of stuff. Just abstracted kind of cartooning. A lot of that stuff that I would say this is on old jazz albums from the 50s and 60s. So anyway, my style is across the board, or my influences are across the board. And I decided, I really like this style. It looks like really fun to do. So I started to do it for fun and to see what would come out of it and see if I would force a style. Ended up getting an agent in kids' books, an agent that had previously denied me doing more comic booky type stuff before. And so yeah, it did kind of work out that way. But what's happened is it was still forced. That was a problem. So, but what it did was it kind of ignited this something inside me where I'm now my old, slightly more realistic style and this kind of abstracted style have meshed because I've relaxed and just let my influences take over what I'm going to do. Because I fell into the trap I think a lot of young illustrators do. They might say, I really love Frank Frazzetta, but when they go to the drawing board, they draw like Charles Shultz, and that frustrates them because that's what's coming out, So I think it might be important to do kind of what I did as an exercise, and it might help you, but kind of let your art be what it's going to be, and let it take its time, and it's going to evolve your entire life, hopefully. Otherwise, you're going to get stagnant.
So you would say that it kind of, in a way, it's sort of just reverted back to sort of just naturally what you're comfortable with, and some of that cartoon modern technique is still ingrained in there, I'm sure. But is that kind of what you're saying?
Yeah, totally. Like, I think I drew. Getting some examples here. Like, I don't know what's on screen right now. So here's this Beetlejuice. Like the shape of the head here is this big long oval, very very skinny neck going into this essentially a long rectangle, kind of curved, slightly curved rectangle for her body. The underskeleton, this was just a tube, his arm right here. Same with the legs, just tubes instead of like worrying about like elbows here, gotta have a straight line here, straight line there, that kind of stuff. I drew this one on, I guess, was it the last one we did? It's got this Frankenstein monster here with this big crazy cranium, these big ass eyes that taper down into this little chin. If he were to have drawn this full bodied, his shoulders would have had to been way out, a lot more broader to be a little bit more anatomically correct, but his shoulder ends right here. And this is a cross between like my old rendering and the kind of cartoon modern underdrawing put together. And so this is just what's happening now, and it's kind of the look of my comic book now too, is like that. It just I don't know, it freed me up, I was a little too anal about my anatomy's not perfect or something like that, but then my influences weren't either.
Well, they always say style is the things you do wrong. So
right.
Yeah.
So when you say it's not perfect, that's your style coming through. In some ways, I mean, I guess it could, for some people it could just be bad anatomy or bad, whatever. But still, yeah.
Yeah, well, it's like what they say about jazz music. Jazz music it's what mistakes you make up jazz music. You just have to repeat those mistakes.
Right, right.
So.
So, what about you, Jeff? What are your opinion on style? What are some of your influence? How did that inform your style? Do you think style is something that you should be concentrating on, or just let it happen naturally as you extrapolate from different artists and things like that?
I do think you should work on getting a style, because I think that's something that, like, when I was younger, I really studied like a lot of artists, and so I absorbed like a lot of different styles, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, in the beginning, I didn't have a lot of like frame of reference, so I only had like the first big artist to affect me was probably Frank Frazzetta, like a ton of other people. And so, like, when you first are like find Frank Frazzetta and you start drawing, you kind of like you start aping him, you know what I mean? But then, like, as you find other people, your own style kind of develops out of that mesh of all these other people's styles, and then what you're bringing in. So I think that, like, if you're just going to go like, oh, I'm not going to like pay attention to anything and never, be influenced by anybody, I think in some ways you're kind of like, cheating yourself a little bit, because you're not open to like learning from other people, I guess.
Yeah.
Because I think that, like, a lot of that stuff, even though like I don't draw like a lot of the people I was into at different times, it's like every one of them I kind of see a little bit where I learned a little something here or there, and it's all in there now. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's almost like a recipe. People are going to use different ingredients, and then it's gonna taste different.
That's a good point. Yeah, it's like a soup, and it's like your soup, and your soup's going to be different than somebody else's, even if you guys both follow the same recipe.
Yeah, because everyone, in that respect, I mean, I guess I don't know, even if I think two artists had the same exact influence and really studied those same influences, I don't know, I still think their artwork would be different. There's just different ways of looking at it, and there's other influences other than just other artists too. I know it seems like a lot of my influence, that I could think of come from people who aren't necessarily artists. Like, one of my biggest influence, I would say, is like Jim Henson. And although he is an artist and he has done actual, like drawing and things like that, but that's not really what he's known for. But just it's the creativity, it's the the kind of the world building and things like that. That's the kind of stuff that really that I get into. And it's funny because, like, my style, it seems, I mean, not style, because I've heard people say, I like your style, or I can recognize that you drew this, and I don't really see that. It's hard for me to see that.
Yeah.
There's certain things, like if you look at like my Cirque work stuff, that the prints and things that I sell, I think that's very stylized, and I could see how somebody could look at that and say, oh, that's got Serkland stuff or whatever. But as far as the comic book stuff, I don't really see that. I don't.
I do, actually. I think you have a strong style that goes.
Yeah, I guess that's the thing.
Yeah, I can't see mine either, though.
Okay, so it's
like
not
other
just
people
me.
say that to me, and so I think it's just every artist is like that. They got a blind spot for their own thing.
I hope so, man. Because at risk of sounding like I have low self-esteem, which I'm not meaning to, but there's so many times when I'm like, man, this looks so generic. My style's so generic.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think most artists probably struggle with that. So, I guess growing up, the funny thing is, you had mentioned, because I was trying to think in going into this conversation what some of my influences were, and sometimes it's hard. I forget. I mean, you mentioned Mad Magazine, Kevin, and like that had huge influence on me, but I didn't even think about it. It's kind of like it's like things. You go in stages, like you'll be into something at one point in your life or your career or whatever, and then you move on to something else, and then but that stuff's still kind of somewhere ingrained in your DNA, like, I mean, I used to sit there and I would make my own Mad magazines and stuff like that, but and for a while I did so many caricatures, and I try to do like more Drucker and those guys, and but and I move on to something else. I mean, obviously, I think all three of us were probably influenced a lot by comic book artists. I mean, that was a big one. I mean, I started off with, I mean, I think you guys go a little deeper than me as far as your comic book influences. Like I think our first artist I really started to recognize was probably like John Byrne, even though I wouldn't list him as like one of my favorite artists, but he was the first one that I could kind of look at him and say, oh, that's, I can see him. I know I can look at his stuff and know it's him. But then I discovered like people like George Perez, and then I think I don't know what influence which artists I've like gravitate to as far as like trying to incorporate their style into mine or taking bits and pieces. But early like Michael Golden, I liked his stuff because it was really detailed, but it was also kind of humorous, and the characters had a lot of personality, and then Art Adams and all those guys.
Yeah, I like all those guys. John Byrne was real big for me too at one point. And Michael Golden.
Yeah.
A lot of little bit of Michael Golden trivia that's probably off the topic for just a second is.
I want to hear it.
He actually created the Danzig skull.
Oh, really?
That Danzig swiped off the cover of a issue of Christar.
Oh, I remember. Well, I remember the Christar, and then I remember. I think he posted the Danzig cover before.
Yeah.
That's cool.
So
anyway,
when you say he created it, he didn't create it for Danzig. Danzig just stole it. Is that?
Danzig took it off the cover of Marvel Comics.
Like, with permission, or he just liked it so much that? Okay, yeah.
He took it.
So
photocopier.
So Michael Golden didn't know he drew the Danzig skull till after the fact.
What he did was, so before it was the Danzig skull, it was called the Sam Hain skull because that's the band he was in. He started right after the Misfits broke up. But anyway, so when he was doing Sam Hain, which is funny because I was a big Sam Hain fan and a Christar, the Crystal Warrior fan.
I had pretty much all of the toys except for like the castle.
Yeah, and apparently Danzig just liked the skull, because like the Misfit skull is also a swipe from a 1930s or 40s serial, but yeah, he just traced it off the cover and like filled in the gaps where like Christar's leg is going over the skull or something like that. But he's been sued, but he won somehow. I don't know how that happened.
Because he traced it, he redrew it.
Yeah, it's some stupid copyright loophole, but anyway, off that. But maybe we should talk about I don't know, getting to style, because I was thinking that I've done this a lot too, and I still kind of do it if I'm just have a few minutes or something, like, or if I'm like watching a show or something that's not particularly, I don't know, holding my interest or something. I don't know. I get my sketchbook out and then I'll just kind of copy somebody's art that I like. To maybe try to steal a little bit of their magic, steal a little of their soul, and swallow their soul and put it into my work.
I never really do that anymore. I used to do that, like, probably 20 years ago, but it's like I never much do it anymore. And I noticed, like, one time I had a chance, like, I was talking to Steve Rude, and I was, like, looking through some of his sketchbooks, because he always seems to have one with him and stuff. And, like, he had a ton of that kind of stuff in there. Like, just, like, straight-out panels of this and that, and just, completely just, I'm going to redraw it and see what I can learn from it. And I thought that was interesting, because at some point I stopped doing that. I don't know. So you still do it?
Yeah, I still do it. And I think the reason why I do it is just because, like I said, my influences range from, like, a Frazzetta to like an Ivan Earl, which is, if you know who that is, he did a lot of the backgrounds on Sleeping Beauty, for example.
Oh, okay.
Which is definitely an influence on, I can't remember the main guy who did the backgrounds for Samurai Jack, but you can definitely see he loves Ivan Earl. But you know what I mean? So I just love so many different styles, I guess, of cartooning and illustration that
Yeah.
you know, I can never learn it all. So there's always someone new to learn from, I think, for me anyway. If
Yeah.
that makes sense.
Well, I'm definitely in that camp, though. I'm always, hunting out new stuff and, not even new stuff, old stuff, whatever.
Right.
And I just go from artist to artist to artist, ever since I decided I want to be an artist, I've just always done that, just one after another. I'll get totally absorbed into their work. But now I notice, like, it doesn't change my work as much,
Yeah.
The influences don't rub off as much, but it's like I still have that, like, oh my god, look at this guy, I gotta find all his shit, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm just constantly doing that.
You know what does rub off though a little bit is sometimes technique stuff, like not like style as much as technique, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like somebody who inks totally different than me, or uses like they ink the contour lines, but then they do like that grease pencil kind of inside, and it gives a really cool look. You don't see much of that these days anymore, it seems like, but things like that. There's some kids book illustrators that I really like that are really kind of influential cartoon modern type artists from the mid-century, and they do a lot of this gouache, dry brush kind of technique that was pretty popular back then. And I don't have any gouache, so I like figure out like how do I get that look, either on the computer or what, because I did a little bit of gouache in art school, but man, gouache is so unforgiving. I don't foresee myself going back to learn that discipline,
I really dug gouache when I used to do it, but I don't know. Eventually, acrylics just kind of eclipsed it. But I thought they were more forgiving than like acrylics, though. Since you could re-wet them and stuff.
Yeah,
it reminded me almost like a water-based oil a little bit, but they did never get the lushness of oil.
They're like, see, to me, they're unforgiving because when I would paint with them, I wanted that 50s look, so it was like really flat color, and then to get a gradient, you would dry brush into it.
Yeah.
But then if you get to the end of a page and your fingernail can scratch it.
Yeah.
And then you have to go in and try to fix it, and then it's not flat color anymore. It's not nice anymore. It looks like a patch, like a lumpy patch, So it's just like so frustrating to me because I don't know, that again, I was younger, and I think you try to be more precious, I think.
Oh yeah, totally.
And so, that could have a big factor in that. I just get so pissed at myself, Oh, this is ruined.
They're not done till they're ruined. That's the way I look at it. Well, who do you study, Scott? I mean, do you still do that kind of stuff, like almost like master studies of different artists?
Well, I don't know if I do it to the extent of like actually sitting down and trying to kind of duplicate that, although that's something I would probably recommend, and something that if I had more time on my hands, I'd like to do, because I think that's a really great way to learn. Is just try your best. I mean, I know when you're in art school, there's a lot of assignments where you just try to do your best to like ape the masters or kind of recreate what they do, and I think that's a really good way to learn. I just haven't had the time to sit down and do those kind of exercises, but because I don't know, I kind of alternate between a couple different, I guess, styles, if you want to say styles. The stuff I do that most people that follow me online probably are familiar with, the comic book, the one I'm working on right now. So I've got my sort of comic book style, and that's kind of evolved from a number of different things. It started off, like if you look at my early stuff, it's probably a lot tighter and everything than what I do now, but I kind of got to that point where it's like I need to kind of expedite my process, because otherwise I'm never going to get anything done. So, it's a little looser, but I like it too, because it's it's kind of fun. I mean, I can pick holes in it all day, and I can see all the things that are wrong with it and stuff. But I don't know. I think instead of pinpointing different things that either I did wrong or just didn't have the time to focus on to get it right, I try to just look at the whole gestalt of everything and just what everything, how it all comes together, and I'm fairly happy with it when it's done and everything. As far as my I did sort of make sort of that conscious, sort of subconscious effort to create a style for like my Circ works, like posters and everything, and a lot of that came from sort of similar to Jim Henson. Another big influence is Walt Disney, and not necessarily like the classic Disney movies, which I love and everything, and there's just amazing, beautiful art, and obviously he spearheaded all that, but he didn't really design all that. But like Disneyland, I mean, I used to go to Disneyland a lot, like every year, and I'm just in awe of all that stuff because, and it's, for me, it's not just drawing and things. I like if you've seen, you know, some of my videos, I've got a little stage that I'm building, and I do, you know, I actually build like physical things like in my bedrooms and here in the house, and like castles and things, and I'm really inspired by just Disneyland is just a huge, that theme park and how they do that and how they build the things out of foam and just creating worlds and things that you wouldn't see in reality. So I always, like, I used to just bring my camera, you know, other people are taking pictures of, you know, their family and stuff, or like, you know, just pictures you would take of rides, and I'm sitting here zooming in on all these little details and things and making, this is before you can find all this stuff on Pinterest or on the internet, you know, so I'm just creating this, you know, I'd go into like Mickey Mouse's house and all these weird, you know, really fantastical tune-shaped furniture and stuff, and I'm just snapping pictures away to, you know, to use as reference and things. So that kind of stuff was a big influence. But one of the things as far as Disneyland that really influenced like what I do, I guess you could call it my Circworks like signature style or whatever you want to call it, the stuff I sell online, was Tomorrowland, which is like, you know, it's like this retro futuristic, you know.
I can totally see that.
Yeah, and it's like the 50s version of what the future would look like. And I always dug that, you know, there's something about it, you know, because now we're way past the time that Walt Disney was envisioning what the future would look like, and it's so different, but it's almost like this what could have been, you know, and I've always been fascinated by that. So I try to incorporate that look, and because I don't really consider myself just an illustrator, and I'm probably, you know, not the best illustrator. Well, I know I'm not, but even, you know, if you were to put me on a scale, I'd probably be somewhere near the bottom or something, maybe. But
no,
well, anyway, okay.
Get to the point.
All right, I'll get to the point. But one of the things I think that helps me is I consider myself a pretty decent graphic designer, so I like to incorporate that as well. So, and that's why I like doing the posters, because I can play around a lot with type and color, and like I'm probably not the best at color theory, so I usually stick to like some monotones and just a few different colors, but I kind of like that. It's kind of got like a screen printed look.
And it's also good color theory, actually. So stop this negative talk, Scott.
I'm not trying to be that negative. I'm just trying to kind of
trying to be humble. You don't need to be, dude.
All right. Well, anyway, so. But as far as that style, kind of, some of it came from when I was working on game art. I discovered a way of, I don't want to go on crazy tangents, but for a long time I was trying to figure out how to duplicate like coloring book artwork. Like if you look at coloring books, a good one, the lines are very tight and it's almost like ink work, but it looks, the stuff that looks digital, I mean, it tapers and it comes to a perfect point, and everything, all the lines are like so perfect. And while when I do my comic book, that's the furthest thing from my mind, but when I do my posters, I really want that really sharp kind of digital line work. And I didn't know how to do it for the longest time, and finally I figured out, just working on games, we were coming up with a style for a particular game, and I found out how to do that. And so I still use that, and then it's just a combination of working in working in Illustrator, drawing all the line work, bringing it into Photoshop. I like color holds where, you know, all my comic book stuff is black and white. Everything, most of the stuff that I do for, you know, my retro future stuff is all, you know, it's all got colored outlines, and I always like that from, like, if you guys remember the Disney cover art for the VHS and stuff. I don't know if they still do that as much nowadays, but they would have the airbrush. The inside would be airbrushed, and the outlines were all, you know, like color holds, meaning, you know, a close color to whatever the inside was and everything. So I always like that. And then, you know, I incorporate, like, even some Jack Kirby stuff. Like, I always just basically rip off his Kirby Crackle. But, you know, when I try to do it, when he does it, it's all with ink and everything, so it's very, you know, organic. Whereas when I do it, it's digital, so it's like almost perfect circles, and I try to play around with that a little bit. But I don't know. I just a few things I've kind of put together, and I came up with this style that I like and I'm real comfortable with, and it's almost like a no-brainer for me to work on. So I really like to do that. So. That was a long story, but anyway.
No, it brings up a good point though, like, because that's something I hadn't thought of much. Was like, you know, like, especially like style to me is like really something that was like a long time ago. I don't think about it as much anymore. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I don't know, like, I mean, was this kind of something you did a while ago and kind of came up with a style, and this is kind of your thing now, or are you still kind of looking?
I'm looking to improve it. I think the touchstones are there, if that's the right terminology. The you know, the basic, you know, structure is there, but I do want to improve on it. I want to I don't know, I want to get a little better with some of the illustration and take it further. But I want it to all look the same. And a lot of it, you know, another influence of mine, and I don't know if I guess he's kind of an artist, but like Rube Goldberg has always been a big influence of mine with just these crazy machines that take forever to basically do one simple action. But I like all this, like Willy Wonka, Rube Goldberg, very, you know, I kind of took those inventions and kind of worked it into a look, like a brand, as far as this Serkworks lab, where it's just this crazy sort of factory laboratory type thing. So that's another influence of mine that I was working, you know, I was doing that for a while, and for a while it started because I was concentrating originally just on character design, and now everyone says, you know, everyone kind of wants to be a character designer, so I'm trying to move away from that and go more into like mad science as a theme and stuff like that. But I just lost my train of thought.
You're kind of talking about Rube Goldberg machines and stuff like that.
Yeah. So, but it started off where I wanted to do character design. So I thought it'd be funny if I built this character builder, like a machine that would actually spit out characters and things. So that's kind of, I think, where I came up with that. But then later I wanted to kind of go further, and as I started getting more into this idea of mad science and everything, I'm like, well, what can I do to, you know, to incorporate kind of what I already do and not stray too much from that? And I just thought, oh, that's a natural fit. Instead of this creature thing, it's more like a laboratory, and so that was kind of the impetus for that.
Yeah, it's neat. Like you're kind of like overall branding your whole thing, which is really cool. Also, along with your style, I guess. You know what I mean?
And I'm trying to tie different things into it, like, because for the longest time I'm like, well, how can I make everything fit under this same umbrella? You know, I've got this zombie comic, so I kind of well, usually zombies are the result of something bad happening in a laboratory, maybe. So then I came up, and then I like robots. I'm thinking, well, robots are usually kind of built in a laboratory, and you know, I like drawing aliens, and aliens, you know, we could come up with this idea that you know, alien technology has been discovered, and people are using it to create, you know, whatever, you know, weapons of mass destruction or whatever. So I kind of took those three things that I kind of like, where not necessarily zombies, although I say zombies, but monsters, aliens, robots, and I was able to think of a way to kind of tie that into this, you know, mad science laboratory type thing. So.
Yeah. No, it's neat. I mean, what about you, Kevin? I mean, is it something you're still I don't know. Is that like a thing with you too? Like where you're trying to like, cause that's like just almost foreign to me. You know what I mean? When I think about like my style, I just like, oh, that's just my style, and then I don't really even think about like my whole other thing. Is it like melding into something? Cause I have like kind of different stuff that seems like it never fits together too. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, and then some, like I was saying in the beginning, sometimes I do like a piece that's totally looks like 1950s, you know.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't say, you know, I'd say when I was 6, 7 years ago or whatever it was, when I like consciously like I am going to change my style for a while and see what happens. Which I don't. It worked out, but I don't really recommend actually. But uh,
Why not actually? Do you mind telling me that before you go on with what you're gonna say?
Because, well, maybe it's something I had to go through, but maybe it is just something you have to go through. So maybe I should retract what I said, but because I wasn't just letting my style be what it was going to be, you know. But I think I had to go through that in order. You know, for a while I was like, yeah, I have 2 styles, but what I should have been doing, and it just easier for my mental health would just be to, you know, let things be what they're going to be. So I wouldn't say I'm trying to like improve on my style anymore. I'm not concerned with what my style is anymore.
Yeah.
So what I'm doing is letting it be what it's going to be, and what I'm doing is just taking in the influence from the things that inspire me and stuff like that, and ultimately just trying to be a better artist overall, and not worrying about the style. That's going to follow no matter what. No matter what you do, you're going to have a style that follows. So I'm just not concerned with it. And you know, something that a bonus feature of that kind of mindset that I've gotten into is that I know I don't look at other people's art and get jealous. You know, I don't have those crippling days anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, knock on wood. It's not saying that that's never going to happen. You know, but it hasn't been happening. Where I'll see some artist that is just, you know, a year or 2 ago I would have been like, oh, I can't do that, and that's so good, and you know, that person, you know, they exist. Why should I? You know,
Yeah.
you know what I mean, that kind of stuff. I'm being a little extreme but you know what I'm saying. Now I just look and I'm like, wow, that is really awesome. Now I'm going to draw what I draw.
Yeah, I totally understand it, because I mean, I could look at somebody like Jeff and this amazing painter skills, and I can say I'll never be able to do that. And but the stuff I do, the way I do it, I think I do it well, you know. So, and I don't want to say I don't want to say don't strive to be better than you can be, but I don't know. I'm kind of I found something I'm comfortable with, and I'm not at the point where I look at like fantasy painters that I just look at and drool over and think, there's no way I'll do that. But I don't know. I do something that I like doing, and I'm kind of happy with that. So
I think that's a good way to look at it, because I mean I'm the same way about other artists, and you know, it's just like, I think that's the takeaway, is it's like, you know, they're gonna do their stuff. That's like what they're contributing, and you're gonna do your stuff, and you're like the only one that can do yours. You know what I mean? So it's important, you know. So.
Yeah. I don't know if I have much to add to that. It just.
Well, I thought it was a good point, but.
That's why I have nothing to add to it. Yes. Yes, everybody. Yes. Okay.
So are there any? I mean, like we talked about, there's a lot of influence and stuff that we, you know, sometimes it's even hard to think of, like things that you know, that have along, you know, throughout our, you know, our journey as artists, we've kind of taken bits and pieces from and everything. But what about like modern people? Are there any people that you guys look to today and think that these guys are doing just awesome work, and that, you know?
Yeah, before we get off that too far, though, like I noticed in the chat, Mike Emeritz said, "What can you do to get away from thinking like that?"
Oh man, that's a tough one. I mean, yeah, it's kind of like a constant struggle.
I remember there with like me, there was like a point like when in my younger days, like I'd say this was like early 20s, where I kind of was like, okay, I'm gonna learn how to draw. I'm gonna get really good, you know. And then I was kind of like going from like different artists to different artists, like Frank Frazzetta, Bernie Wrightson, you know, Frank Miller, Bill Sienkiewicz, you know, like all these people were kind of like adding in. And then at some point, I was like, I felt like I was kind of like losing myself, and I had to kind of like go in my own direction. You know what I mean? So I kind of like, I don't know. I think everybody kind of goes through that, but that's when. Let me think. Now I was coming back to the point. Now I'm gonna get straying, but I think that there's like, I think that's. I don't know. What am I saying? I think that's the point. Is it's like you still have to be original, I guess. And it's like just you drawing it makes it original, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah. Well. Yeah, I mean, coming to the way I'm thinking now, I mean, it took over a decade and a half, you know?
Yeah, it takes a long time.
I had this epiphany that came easy to me, you know? I had to do a lot of trial and error, and, you know, I don't know what clicked. I mean, it sort of clicked, actually, I don't even know if I talked about it, probably sometime when I was doing the first 100 days of making comics. Because originally I had this idea that the art was going to be so much easier, like, or not easier, but way more cartoony than it's coming out. You know, like it was going to look like the Rocky and Bullwinkle cartoon or something. You know, and I just it just kind of hit me like, dude, you're going to do what you're going to do. Just chill out and do it, you know? But it did take, you know, about 15, 16 years to get to that. And, you know, and I think it's going through all this trial and error and just, I don't know, you know, there came a point when it's like some of the people who influenced me the most, and I was just starting to get that frustration of like, you know, I can't draw like this. You know, I love this person's art, and you know, I'll never be this good, and blah blah blah. It just got tiring.
Yeah.
You know, it just got mentally taxing. And I was like, well, no, I can't draw like that because I'm not that person. So just fuck it. I draw like me.
Just give up on it.
And then all of a sudden, you know, you're not beating yourself up as much.
Yeah.
You know, your only competition is you now, which is way better.
Yeah, I think too, like that's something that comes on a lot. I think, especially like artists, because they don't, you know, like you have to learn so much and practice so much before you can even get to the point where you're like taking commissions and working and all that kind of stuff. And like, so you build up like all this sort of baggage about like trying to be better and everything has to be so freaking good and all that kind of stuff. And so like, I remember. I think when I first started selling, like not so much like when I worked in comics, but then there was a big space where I didn't, and I just was kind of working by myself. So then that space I built up like a lot of this sort of like, oh my God, I'm not as good as this guy, I'm not as good as that guy, that kind of shit, you know?
Right.
But one of the things that kind of broke me out of it was just selling. Just, you know, having people be like, okay, you know, I'm going to pay you for a piece that you have to get it done and give it to me. So it was like I can't second guess these things forever. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's a good point.
It's just kind of a, you know, it's not really an answer, but it is kind of an answer. You kind of like, and I think that a lot of times, like with comics and stuff, when you look at the old guys like Jack Kirby and them, you're like, man, that stuff was so perfect. I can't do that stuff. But I think the reality of like when they were doing it, they were just like, I got to get this next one done. I got to get this next one done. And they just did it how they did it. And like, I think if you asked them, they would be like, no, I don't think that's perfect. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that is a good point I didn't even think of. Because, I mean, for, you know, the past good bit of my adult life has been deadline driven, you know? And so, yeah, a lot of it is just like, well, that's the time I have. So it's done. And I have to move on to the next page and the next whatever. So... You know, I think that was another thing probably that helped. You know, just be like, it is what it is. I don't have time.
And it sounds terrible, but I do think it, because I really remember like there was I was scared when I first started getting work because I was like, I don't you know, like, because I really had like these mental problems about like just finishing stuff at that point, you know.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden people were paying me, and I was like, and I was just like, I don't know, I'm not sure if I got it in me anymore to like work for people, you know. It's kind of crazy, but it really does build up. But I don't know if that helps at all.
Well, yeah, I don't know. The not working for other people, to me, that's coming from a different mindset a little bit. Just
Yeah.
For me, it's business stuff.
But to me, like that,
all
it
business.
still ties in though, because it's like even if you're working for yourself, you still have product that you gotta get out. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah, I'm not saying go and immediately sell your you know, everything to somebody who wants to pay you nothing just to get stuff done.
Yeah.
I think another thing that helps is, like I said, if we each kind of work in our own style, and because of that, there's going to be different people that kind of resonate with different kinds of artwork. And once you find people that are into what you do, even if it's not, you know, even if you're not this amazing concept artist or whatever, but when you find people that do like what you do, I mean that's just an awesome feeling. That kind of helps kind of, you know, reinforce that you're doing something right. I remember not too long ago I had went to meet with an art director, and this is for a big ad agency, and you know, of course they do a lot of kind of corporate stuff. So I put a lot of that corporate stuff in my portfolio, and they're looking through it, and you know, this is all on my iPad, and they're swiping. They're like, yeah, you know, I don't know if I really like that, you know. And then finally they get to my own personal stuff. And they're like, that's why we called you in here. That's the stuff we like. You need to do more of this kind of stuff. And, you know, why aren't you on every, you know, all these different ads and all kinds of stuff like that. So, I mean, and that was kind of a good feeling, because it, you know, at first it was kind of, I was almost like insulted because, you know, they looked at the corporate stuff I was doing and they were like, yeah, we don't like that. But they were honest, you know. And when they got to the stuff that I'm really passionate about, and I think that has a lot to do with it. I think the stuff that you're passionate about, I think that comes through and people can see it as genuine, and it's the stuff you really love, and there's something in there that makes, you know, that attracts people to it.
Yeah, that's why if you look at my portfolio, it's mostly personal stuff, because the corporate stuff doesn't get me hired because, you know, corporate stuff isn't as good. I don't care about it. And then the corporate people hire me for the personal stuff and then make me do something crappy. But anyway.
They can't win.
Yeah. But yeah, you always get hired for the personal stuff for sure.
You know, Kevin, like with your two styles though, I gotta admit, that's like something I've always felt like I've got like these two damn styles that I can't meld together. I mean, how do you have you ever found any kind of, or are they just kind of coming together, you know, naturally? Is there
I
any
think it's more
answer
natural.
to that? Just a natural thing that happens?
Yeah. It's like, just stop forcing it, and it's like, well, I like these two things, and we'll see what happens, and, you know, that's a lot why I like Monkey Mod. I thought it was going to be so much different than it's turning out, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So, just kind of letting it be what it's going to be, I guess. And it's easier. I don't know. You know, like some of the cartoony stuff might look easier, to like the uninitiated. You know.
I don't think so, actually, but yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. Yeah, just let loose, let go, man, let go, brothers, sisters. Chill.
Yeah.
No, yeah, it just, you know, letting go just just made things better. I don't know. And then, you know, everyone likes things that feel good, so it feels good to not stress out. So just how I'm operating, I guess.
Yeah.
So I was gonna kind of go back into. You guys hearing feedback?
No.
Okay, that's kind of weird because I know this time I got my headphones on, so I know it's not me. But anyway, so I was going to go back into the chat a little bit, and I'm going up a little bit, but now I'm probably going to butcher this name, but Cetriya, says, most wouldn't guess at my influences since all they see are manga, but I have been influenced by Negal, Lyendecker Gibson, and others. So what are some, I thought that was kind of interesting. So what would you say are some influences that you have that are totally, people might say, are contrary to what might come out in your style or whatever? Like for me, one, and I don't know if I would say an influence, but somebody's artwork that I've always loved, and every time I look at it, I'm just amazed by it, and I just like one of my favorite artists of all time, but definitely not somebody you would think of when it comes to me, or somebody, or you can't see it all in my work, is like H.R. Giger, or Geiger, however you pronounce it. The guy who designed all the alien stuff and everything. So what? Yeah. So what would be some of your like artists that you like, but just are totally different than what you do?
It's a hard one.
Yeah, that is a hard one. Because there's artists like I said, Ivan Earl, who's predominantly was this background painter. You know, I don't know that my influences come from his backgrounds, or like Mary Blair. I think I can see some of her influence with some of the cartooning of the anatomy and stuff. But like with her and like Ivan Earl, for example, I don't directly swipe from enough that you could really see it, maybe, but the color that they use, is a big influence. God, I don't know.
Yeah, because there's more than just the what's on the surface as far as the drawing technique. There's, like you said, color and other things, or composition that maybe you can pull from that, and that's something that you can come up with something entirely new, because if the artist is totally different, like if I'm looking at an H.R. Geiger piece and there's something in that composition that I can incorporate into something that's totally different than what he does, then I may have introduced something entirely new. So I think it's healthy to kind of look outside of what you would typically think of would be sort of similar to your style, and find little things here and there from other artists like that.
Yeah, well, yeah, I like old pinup artists like Vargas and Elvgren. I like Elvgren better than Vargas even, but and I guess people wouldn't see that just because I don't draw pinup art a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, I've maybe done a couple pieces of it, and that's about it. But still, I can see Elvgren because he's kind of cartoony, really.
Yeah, he's got a real strong style to his work.
Yeah.
One that for me, I know that I had to think kind of hard, but one of them, and I think it would be like an influence more to my comic type stuff, but it's like I was really into a lot of underground comic artists that like the kind of the black and white autobiographical kind of guys, like Chester Brown, Joe Matt, that guy Seth, you know what I mean, Optic Nerve, all that kind of stuff. I love that stuff, and I do feel like there's an influence to it, but it's just like I doubt anybody could see that in my work for sure.
Right.
But it would definitely, I think, be like the storytelling side of it, and I haven't done many comics lately, so.
I mean, I could see something like Optic Nerve in your stuff, except for your finish is not.
Right.
You know what I mean? His finish is so.
Yeah, kind of stiff or something. I don't know.
Well, it's almost like an Alex Tothy kind of thing, where it's just like there's no extra lines. There's like one line for.
Yeah.
To denote, there's no rendering, I guess.
Yeah.
That's probably the better way to put it. But.
I mean, that whole Jim Henson thing you went off on was like a great example too, because I'm like a massive Jim Henson fan, but it's like from Dark Crystal and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Well, because and you've done like the stop motion and everything like that too. So
yeah.
Because all of us do.
If somebody looked at that stuff, they might guess it though.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
So I can see I could definitely see you being influenced by who was it who did the character? Brian Froud?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Is that his name?
Yeah.
From Dark Crystal.
I love his stuff.
Yeah. He did all those crazy pressed fairy books and stuff too.
Yeah, those are really good.
Yeah. I used to feel when those were coming out, I felt like I was I don't know, being too macho or something, but I used to get like real embarrassed. Oh, I'm buying it for a girlfriend.
That's
I'm buying
funny.
it for me. No, I don't care. Everybody, I have fairy books. I bought them for myself.
Well, what's really weird is when you're a children's book illustrator, and you go into the children's section, and maybe you don't have kids with you, and you're buying children's. I think that's more of a
totally
guy
used to
thing.
feel all self-conscious when I would do that.
Yeah.
No, it's like I got a cover. I got Tristan.
Yeah.
Come on, let's go look at these books.
Yeah, I know. I used to do that too. Like in art school, I'd go like with a friend, who, you know, like either a girlfriend or a friend who was a girl. You know, from class to the kids' book section because girls aren't as creepy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That sucks.
But one time, when I first started in college, I was an animation student, 2D animation student, which, when I was in art school was an awful career path, apparently. But anyway, so Fantasia 2000 was new in the theaters when I was still an animation major, and I went by myself because I had this like 4-hour break between classes or something ridiculous, So I went and I was like gonna look at the techniques of this new, Disney whatever kind of thing, and I was the only guy in there, and there's all these moms with their kids and stuff, and I'm like thinking I'm here to like study art,
Yeah.
And there's this like big circle around me, like no man's land or no woman and kids land. It's next to me,
I totally used to do that same thing, and yeah, if you go during the day, that's when moms take their kids, so it's like you go to those ones like in the middle of the night, you go to the late show, there's no kids in there.
Yeah.
But I totally know what you mean, because I used to like, to go to the Disney movies and, any kind of animated movie that would come out. But,
yeah. It's pretty funny.
yeah.
So, anyway.
What other than visual art, I know we've all kind of at least worked in comics at some point in our lives or whatever. What about like storytelling and things like that? Who do you look to for that?
Jim Henson's a great example.
Yeah.
Where do I look? I like a lot of kind of this old detective spy stuff that was kind of popular in like this, from like the I guess 30s to the 60s. Mm-hmm. And there's definitely different styles that happen within those decades too, but storytelling wise, God, there's so many like people, because like modern people like Gendy Tartakovsky, like his style storytelling, especially in Samurai Jack, where it's a lot of show don't tell, or it's more show but not tell, if that makes sense. Yeah.
That was probably
comics, or were you talking animation though?
Well, I was just talking storytelling, and not necessarily like visual artists, but like what kind of stories do you like, and how does that influence your work at all? Like for me, if you follow like my Young and the Dead stuff, you know that I'm into like the kid adventure films, circa 1980 or whatever.
Right.
That really that really informs what I do, and when I like period pieces. If you can call something, I guess I'm old enough now that you can call like something in the 80s a period piece. I don't know, but 70s, like most of my comics don't take place in modern times, just because I like to do stories about kids and teens and things like that. And I'm not going to propose to know all the slang and all, and I think it would come off as like disingenuous if I tried to like write something for today's teens. So I always like to go back to the 70s and 80s and put some stories there. So.
I mean, speaking of like retro stuff or doing stuff with the time, that is like a big influence for me, because what's important for me in storytelling too is to, as far as the stuff I'm doing goes, is to have something, because I do like the old retro stuff, but what I do like to do is have it not. God, what I'm trying to say, it's like you can tell that, like, say, Batman the Animated Series is influenced by Art Deco stuff, but it's really a fictional time. It's of no time.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's kind of what I'm doing with Monkey Mod. It's influenced by 60s pop culture and aesthetic, but it's not the 60s. You know, it's a no time. I like that kind of stuff because I like the timelessness. You know.
Yeah. Have you seen? You like horror movies, right? I mean, good ones. Have you seen?
Yes, good ones.
Have you seen It Follows?
Say that again, sorry.
Have you seen It Follows?
No.
Okay, you should check it out because it's exactly like that. It takes place in this weird time that, I mean, the houses and everything look very 70-ish, and it's never specified what time it is. None of the characters like have cell phones or anything, but then, and it's kind of jarring in a way, but I think it creates this real unsettling feeling because this one character pulls out this thing that looks like, this female character pulls out this thing that looks like a makeup compact, but it's like an e-reader. And it's like the only kind of technology like that you see in this world, and it's just so like bizarre. But everything else, but it is one of those things that you cannot tell when this is supposed to take place. But I just found that really, the style of it was really cool. It's a relatively recent movie, and it's not like it's very like John Carpenter-esque.
Yeah, it has that feel. Like I actually saw that one, and it does have that feel of like Halloween or something, like that, all the streets and stuff. But you're right. Then it's like that chick has that e-reader. So you're right. It's like you can't pin it down. It's weird.
You know, I like. I've always really liked George Orwell, which is one of those happy byproducts of, you have to read this in school and.
Right.
And I was like, wait a minute, I like this, actually,
Yeah.
Or like Philip K. Dick is another one.
Right, where, and then if you see, like, any of the film adaptations of their books or anything, they're all this kind of, like, future technology made out of industrial retro machinery, and, I hate to say steampunk because I hate that term, so, because it's not punk, everybody.
Right.
There's nothing punk about steampunk.
I don't know about the term, but...
dude. Yeah, it's steampunk. It's got steam.
Yeah. There's nothing punk about it. Anyway. I like, it's probably pretty cliche at this point, but I don't care. I love Alan Moore.
Yeah.
Alan Moore's kind of writing. There's always like a little bit of mystery and intrigue with everything, and there's always a bit of social commentary that goes along with it, and it just so happens I'm as liberal as he is, so I usually agree with it. but there's it's like done in a way where it doesn't hit you over the head. You know what I mean? Like if there's a political agenda or an idea that he's getting across, you come to it on your own. That kind of storytelling is what I'm trying to put in Monkey Mod, because while I say on my videos and stuff, it's this adventure mystery, of course, like, a lot of influences are coming from, my worldview and stuff like that, and they're in the story, but I'm not trying to hit you over the head, So I'm trying to add characters that are counter to what I believe in my worldview and stuff like that, if that makes any sense,
Yeah.
So that kind of stuff is important to me too.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know if I really got an answer like that. I don't know, like comic book storytelling, like I usually just think of it like in mechanics, and that I'm a huge fan of like Alan Moore and the way he writes, like Frank Miller I love, and Will Eisner. I don't know. As far as like other stuff that influences me, like storytelling wise, it's like I don't know. There's just so much stuff I like, I'm just like so all over the place. I mean, and this is like lame. I'm almost, don't even want to admit it, but like, like I was watching like some like Veronica Mars the other day. I was watching all these episodes of Veronica Mars, and even that, I'm just like sitting there like taking apart the storytelling. You know what I mean? Even like, we were talking about Spartacus,
Oh yeah.
How good the writing and the storytelling in that is. It's like I just have a habit of that whenever I watch something. A lot of times, if it actually takes me off guard to where I'm like into it, like Spartacus did, it's like I almost have to go back and rewatch it and see how the heck they got me. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
So.
It's like long gone are the days where I could just watch something.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Without figuring out why it's awesome or what.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's
isn't it refreshing though when that actually does? Because like what happens with me is like I am like that. Like I said, I'm like watching CSI, I immediately go start like taking apart like how they're gonna who's the killer is and how they're gonna fool me.
Yeah.
And I like when something actually gets me so far off like my game or something that it like is surprising me. And in a way, Spartacus was one of them.
Yeah.
Like at first I was totally just, oh, this is gonna be corny, cheesy, and then it really turned it on its ear, and I was just like enthralled.
Yeah, because like the effects and everything are so cheesy.
Uh-huh.
It just looks like it's gonna be bad, and then
Yeah.
I, like you were saying, you got to see this, and I was like, yeah, okay, whatever.
Right.
And then I finally sat down and watched it. It didn't take long for me to get hooked.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a rare show where, I just kind of got to like relax and enjoy it without picking it apart until like, we might talk or something, and then I think about it. But yeah, that's a rare one for me.
Yeah, or like I don't know. I mean, that's the kind of stuff I'm really a fan of. Is like when I can't guess it. Like that movie Memento was another one where I was like, holy fuck, I don't know. Every now and then, something like that. I really like. I don't know if that answers like the question or not.
Yeah, no. So we're getting sort of close to an hour, and I got to run and do some stuff. But I wanted to kind of, I guess, bring the topic back around and get sort of a closing thought as far as, so do you guys, I think we've kind of came to the conclusion that you should just kind of let this happen naturally, or do you want to concentrate on trying to develop a style, or I mean, what's your guys' opinion on that, or just the whole subject of style, I guess, if you can wrap all that up. What are your thoughts on it?
Well, what I think is good to do is study your influences, study what you like, for sure, but then when you get to the art table, put it away. Don't look at it. I know a lot of people have these like inspiration boards with their favorite artist on it. I find that crippling. So maybe this is just an opinion that I'm sharing. But I think you're going to find your style easier if you do put your influences away. Study them, put them away, then do your art.
I think so, because I think that you kind of have to like let your own voice in there a little bit. You know what I mean? If you're trying to go too hard one way, then it is kind of like like you said, crippling, or like constrain you or something.
Yeah.
I mean, it is awesome to be fans and like study stuff and like try to learn from it and everything like that. But it's at the end of the day, you just have to draw the way you draw. And I don't know. Whatever comes out, right?
Yeah, totally.
Fortunately.
And there you go, you got style. And now you have style. Thanks for watching, everybody. There's my ending.
All right, so yeah, I mean, I'm kind of somewhere, I guess, somewhere in the middle. I mean, I've battled that, trying to come up with a style, especially back when I was doing comics and stuff, and it just for me finally I just kind of gave up trying to find a certain style, and I guess it found me. So like I said, I still don't really see it, at least in my comic book stuff, but other people do, and so it's there, I guess. So so I don't know if we want to just go around one more time and tell everyone who we are, and kind of and we'll go ahead and wrap this thing up. So Kevin, you want to start?
Sure. Kevin Cross, illustrator, cartoonist, comic artist, whatever. I'm going to start saying writer as well.
Cool.
Robert Rodriguez was like, before he even got paid to make films, he was like, well, I'm a filmmaker, because he was doing it, And so yeah, I'm a writer as well. I do creative things. And subscribe to my YouTube channel. That'd be cool. It's down below on the screen somewhere, I think.
I see it.
What is it? YouTube.com/KevinCrossArt.
Yep.
And there's links to everything that I do underneath the description of each video.
Jeff?
Yeah. Me, I'm Jeff Lafferty. I don't know what I am. Illustrator, I guess. And my website's jefflafferty.net. YouTube's like YouTube/C/Jeff Lafferty, I think. So, and the link is, I'm sure, down below.
Okay. Yeah. So I'm Scott Serkland. You can find me at Serkworks.com. Serkworks on YouTube. Basically, I make it pretty easy. It's either Scott Serkland or Serkworks. So that's where you can find me, and the links you can see them below there. Yeah, if you haven't already, because I know a lot of you guys might be finding me from Jeff and Kevin's site. Check out my stuff. I got tons at least on YouTube. I got tons and tons of videos. So yeah, if you like what you see, then hit that subscribe button. And other than that, so like what we're doing is we're just kind of rotating. So who did it first? Was it Jeff? So
yeah,
Jeff next week. And then we're just going to take turns on each other's channels, and we'll come up with another topic, and hopefully you'll join us for that. So unless anyone has any other parting words, I'm gonna use my sign up and say that is all. And
well, if there's, did you say this? Did I brain fart out for a second? If anyone has any topics they want us to talk about, please put them in the comments below.
Oh yeah, and do I need to copy this before I click the thing off if I want to copy the chat and paste it in?
Yeah.
From YouTube? Okay, so let me do that real quick before I sign off.
Well, no, you can shut the Hangout. It'll still be there. Just don't shut the YouTube page.
Oh, okay, got it. Okay. All right, everyone. We'll see you next week. Later.
See you guys.
Later.